All right, juice box, our 84 Bronco. Now, I know, I said I wasn't gonna work on it at all until the F350 was done, but hold on, I got 2 road trips. One of them's with the F350, one of them is coming right up for a quadding weekend. And as much as I love the truck, I could not drive it any longer with that twin I-beam suspension. So, Dana 44 solid axle swap, and it's so much better. I'll show you guys how to do it. Let's get into it. Here we go.
We could go E5.
I'm coming to Price Group Garage. We're putting a sniper on it.
Check.
We were making headway. Now we need 2 windows.
Yep. Get us through power tour without dying.
While this is happening on the highway.
We're going to Ford Fest. So we're throwing a Holly Dash in there.
Got the rust remover solution in there. And then tie it to your spinner thingy.
Should work, here we go. First things we need to do is to be able to stop our ride, so this is very important. I promised myself I wouldn't get too carried away with this build. Oh, this is so much better. Okay, so it's middle of summer, and it's weird weather. It's mixed between blazing hot sun and a lot of rain. And I love the top off, because that's how you're supposed to drive a Bronco. Haven't had the top on yet. But it just got caught in a little shower, and it's not soaked or anything, but it's a little damp. And the sun gets hot because there's no covering. So we got a nice soft top from Softopper. So we'll see how complicated this is to put it on. Give the girl some shade and keep the seats dry. Here we go. So there's a couple reasons why we're doing this swap. This is the Ford's twin I-beam suspension, meaning that it pivots here and it pivots at the back there, and both front sides are able to move independently of itself. I'm seeing a lot of tire wear on the outside of the tire, meaning that we've got positive camber on both tires, and these tires are fairly new, so we want to kind of save this. So with the solid axle, you can't adjust your camber. Your axle is where it is, and it stays put. We can adjust caster, which helps it go in a straight line and affects the steering. And we can adjust our toe, but that's it. Tire wear is one, and we've got a lift kit in this one because we like the look of it sitting just a bit higher. We're gonna drop it a little bit lower because it's a bit too high. I've got short family members who have trouble climbing in. So we're gonna lower it a little bit. Because we've lifted it though, the steering geometry is off. So if you don't lift it, the twin I-beam is probably fine. But what happens is we've got a pivot point here for the steering on the back and one here. What happens is the length changes as the suspension goes up and down, and the steering doesn't quite follow that. So as the suspension's turning, the tire is going one way or another rather than staying straight. So what we found, we tried putting stiffeners on it and making sure that everything was tight, but it's basically, if you look it up online, there are problems from the start. Now, because it's a complicated system, each bushing, if it wears just a little bit, tie rod ends, this and that, if they all wear a little bit, they all kind of want to do their own thing, and it becomes pretty tricky to drive. There's a lot less moving parts on the solid axle, but we still need to get our geometry right in order to get it to not kill it. So we tried steering stabilizers. We replaced tie rod ends. We didn't replace this one, the inner tie rod, but That was the only one we didn't replace. We're also going with long arm radius arms, which will bring it back here. So when the suspension does compress, because it's a longer radius, it doesn't tilt the axle as much, and that also helps. Again, if you don't do the geometry right or you buy cheap bars, the geometry's not right and it'll still be a handful to drive. Luckily, it is 2022 and these things have been around long enough that other smarter people than us have already done it.
Okay, so we got long arms from Bronco Bob. So these were actually designed for a first generation Bronco, but they will work for this one. Luckily, the axle that we bought had the bracket with it because we need this bracket, not the drop down bracket that we had before. Unfortunately, we are missing the spring perches on here, so they're different from the twin I-beam. So, looking in my cupboard of crap, and I do have these, which are close. This one's a touch too big, so I gotta weld a little bead on the inside, weld her up, turn it down. And this one is just a touch too small, so just stick it on the lathe and just spin that out just a hair. It's not much, so then drill new holes to mount it here, and then we can mount these springs on there. We're going with 3-inch lift rather than a 4. We're gonna drop the front just a little bit. I find it just a touch too high, so we're gonna drop it just a little bit. Okay, so those are all set, nice tight fit. We'll drill the holes in the bottom. This one's pretty nice and beefy, way stronger than it ever has. Once it's up there, I gotta weld a little tab on there so that the spring can't come out. We got our tie rod ends all replaced, bracket for the traction bar, new traction bar, Panhard bar. So we're all set. That, and then once we get it mounted on the truck, then we'll replace all the ball joints and put some better brakes on it as well. So unfortunately, we're waiting for a diff still for the front. I don't know what the gear ratio is, but we'll leave it alone. If we need 4-wheel drive, we can climb out of something. We're gonna start by disconnecting the steering, replacing the bars, and start taking juice box apart. These are the long radius arms. You can see the 79 Dana 44 has a much longer radius arm than our 84 Bronco, which is this tiny little cute thing here. You can almost touch it end to end. But then the ones from All for Fun are even longer than that. So we'll replace the bushings, put the bracket on, and then torque them up, and then see where we end up once we have it on here. I got new rubbers. You always want to use new rubbers. Using the old rubbers gets messy, and then you end up with problems that you didn't even think about before, ever. Long arms are on. Of course that took longer than it was supposed to. If you're wondering why I reused the bolts, it's because nobody in town has 9/16 bolts, so we'll get those at another place, a grade 8, and nobody has 7/16 grade 8 bolts for my springs either, so I'll have to get those. But we're just assembling. This is why I'm doing this now, because in about a week's time I want to take the Bronco on a 10-hour drive. So if there's any pieces that are missing or incorrect, then I can get those ahead of time. So we're not panicking. It's weird, eh? And then 2 weeks after that, we're taking it to Bowling Green, Kentucky. So that'll be a 24-hour drive. Hopefully this works out. So next, long arms, we'll put the brackets on the back, and then the bushings on the back that were supplied, and then we'll have our placing. I gotta take the sway bar off as well. I think what I can do is make these brackets somehow fit. I can weld those on my plates on the bottom and keep the sway bar in the front. So probably end up doing that. Okay, so before we mount it, I'm going to replace my ball joints and the axles and the brakes. Unfortunately, we don't have our Eaton locker for the front yet, so we'll take the case off and take a look at how the diff looks. Okay, took the diff cover off and it is super rusty in there. It'll probably work, it'll be fine. I'm sure there's Dana 44s with that look a lot worse, but for now we're gonna pass over this. We'll do a completely separate video on installing the Eaton, hooking up our drive shafts, talking about our chrome moly shafts and all that. We're gonna pass over that on this episode just to keep the episode moving and focus on getting the alignment right and not going down the road like this, like an old Dodge or a new Dodge or a brand new Ford. We want to keep this thing going straight. So yeah, I think we're gonna button that back up again, pretend we didn't see that. Maybe spray a little bit of WD-40 in there so it doesn't get worse. And then not touch anything else, and then get going on the outside. So we got lots to do. Here we go. And a completely different video, we'll show you how to set up the front. And actually, when we set up the front, will be when we match our 6R80 to this front diff and worry about drive shafts and stuff like that. Well, it's all fun stuff that we're going to do this winter. So here we go. Okay, so before we take the front axle off of our Bronco, I'm just going to take a couple measurements. I need to find the proper place for the front axle. Our Skyjacker lift went off a bolt from the old bracket, so that was your reference point. We don't have that because it'll end up kind of in the middle of the frame. So I just went to the outside of the rim as close as I can, and then to the middle, and I measure 104.5. So not that rear axle is perfect or this is perfect, but if the other side is close, then that'll give us a kind of a reference point of where we should be. And this side is an easy 105. So we're already off. 1/4 inch, we'll split the difference and then go from there. The only way to get this right is on an alignment machine. We can do a string alignment to get us to the alignment shop, but it doesn't replace a $40,000 machine. That'll tell when you turn your caster, and all sorts of funny stuff happens. We can shim the forward and backward on the radius arms just by pushing and adding and subtracting shims there, and then we can raise and lower it just by putting shims underneath the bracket and changing the caster. We're up as high as we possibly can, but we can tilt the caster and get more negative caster, I believe. But we will get it close and then go from there. Okay, so for our Dana 44, we're going with bigger brakes. We got 12-inch brakes coming from BAER. The issue is you want to make sure that they fit inside the rim. So BAER has this very simple template that you print out. You cut it out, you stick it in the rim, you measure to see if the calipers will physically fit inside your rim without scraping. First thing you got to do is grab a tape measure on the scale and make sure that your inches are proper, and I can see that we are not, so I got the wrong scale. Now I need to wait for my wife to come home and figure out how to print it bigger or smaller. Alright, so I printed it out. And first thing I want to do is make sure that an inch is actually an inch on here, and this is exactly perfect. So I stole my kid's glue stick, and we're going to just glue this to a little piece of cardboard. Now, I have honestly found that everything you learn in kindergarten, like cut and paste, is more valuable than things you learn in high school, like trigonometry. Anyway, so next thing we want to do is measure our hub. We actually have 4 1/4 across. So you don't want to measure the chamfer, you want to measure the actual opening. So now these only went up to 3 inch, but we've got 4 1/4. So what I did was from the center line, that's 2 1/8, and I went and just drew my own line. So this is where the hub would be. Now we can cut it out. I wish we'd have some real scissors in the house. So right here is your hub. and then that is the width of your caliper. You're gonna make sure that that doesn't hit your rim. Stick it in. That is a beautiful thing. So we got lots of space on the outside, and we got pretty close to the inside of the caliper right there. But we can always put a little spacer in there just to bring the rim out. Biggest thing is I can still put my finger in there. So we are golden. Here we go. We've got our hub here, and we're gonna basically disassemble it and replace the brakes and the bearings and the seals. To do that, we're gonna start by removing the caliper. We've got a beautiful BAER brake assembly going on. Look at that. And a beautiful caliper painted to match the eventual color of the Bronco. Now, I know we talked about a Coyote swap and 6R80. The brakes on that thing are terrible. So, first things we need to do is to be able to stop our ride. So this is very important. So anyway, we don't have to be too careful. You'll have to be careful. I'm not going to be careful because we are basically just replacing the brakes. So we're going to pull this bolt out, slide that hammer out, get rid of the caliper, remove the snap rings, and then use our ball joint press from Princess Auto to push out the ball joints, and then we'll take the hub apart on the front. Let's get into it. Just like it's supposed to. Come on. She's old and the snap ring just snaps. These are little Allen bolts. They are a very small Allen bolt. These are the manual hubs. You might have automatics. I've got this part on the Ford and the Dana 44. They're both Fords, but on the Dana 44 and on the twin I-beam are the same. So we'll probably end up using the hub off of the Bronco because they're nice and clean from Oregon. This is pretty rusty, so you got to make sure that these surfaces are all nice and clean because you need them to mate up properly and for the bolts not to come loose. I already pulled the other one apart because the backing plate on this one is rotten, so we'll use the backing plate off of the Bronco as well, and then we are in good shape. Okay, so right around the outside is a snap ring. You're gonna pull that out, and then if your axle's poking out, there's a snap ring on there too, and you gotta push that down to get that snap ring out. I don't have that because I don't have an axle, and you wouldn't be able to do this on the bench unless you didn't have an axle, but now you know. This one, you just gotta hold your teeth right. If you don't hold your teeth right, it doesn't work. Oh, I'm getting better. Nope, lost it. Lost it. Hold on. I can get it. There we go. That's that. You can take two bolts, stick it back in again, pull that hub out, or the locking mechanism out. Once you have that center snap ring out. These the bolts were loose. What do I got? I don't have the right socket for this yet, but I will by the time I put it back together again. Pair of vice grips first. I gotta put that in the vise.
Grab the locking ring, and then the inside one. Now make sure that that little tab is still there. This keeps that center nut from spinning, but that little tab has to fit in a hole, and this little tab fits in a groove to keep that from spinning. And then the other nut jams against that, keeps that all nice and neatly together. So we should be able to pull that apart now. There we go. So we are not going to use this because it's rusty and old and gross and dirty. We're going to use the one from our Bronco, which is the same with the new rotor. But we need to get rid of this backing plate and paint our caliper holder or whatever. Get rid of this holder and install this one from BAER Brake. Penetrating fluid. They're not too bad. They should come out. Oh, you suck. Pop nuts back on again. You're gonna use a punch and just punch the studs out. You don't want to damage the threads. I think it's a good. I'm gonna grab a bigger punch. That's not cool at all. Gotta heat it up. I will be right back. Now, this piece will pop out of here, or it's supposed to, but it's still gonna need some persuasion. So if it doesn't work, trick is to get a bigger hammer. But a couple different chisels usually gets the job done. One, and that's gotta go the other way. Voila! Okay, so we're done with this. You might need it if you're gonna continue. We're not. We're gonna clean this up. We're gonna splash some paint on it tonight. Let that dry so we're ready in the morning. I'm gonna throw this in the lathe and clean that up just with some emery cloth. And then so that surface is nice and clean on both sides. Splash a little bit of paint on that. And then we can use the actual hub off of the Bronco. Now this is a 5-bolt. The one on the Bronco is a 6-bolt, so it doesn't fit and it's actually physically smaller. So now it's just a matter of cleaning them and painting them. I'm not gonna video that because that's just boring stuff. But that's where she's at. We're gonna clean that up. And she'll look brand spanking new. Here we go. The press is the easiest to get these studs out. And then you don't damage the studs either. You can replace them if you want, or you can reuse them. Up to you. I recommend replacing them. But here in Canada, when you order them, it takes 3 weeks, and then you get the wrong ones, and then you end up using these anyway. So I'm just gonna reuse these, save myself 3 weeks.
Now, it's all rusted together. It won't come apart because this is Oregon. It just comes apart so nice. So clean this, splash some paint on it, replace those bearings and the grease, and we're good. This rotor's for sale. eBay, $800. Okay, so paint turned out nice. Also painted the front axle there, so we're good to go there. And we got all our new bearings. So we're gonna throw some grease on our palm and pack the bearings full. We're gonna slam the races into the hub, and then ready to start assembly again. Here we go. I'm gonna put this in the vise. Okay, so we torqued and Loctited these bolts. You want to make sure that they bottom out. Now we can attach our rotor to this hub, and same thing, we want those studs to 100% make sure that they bottom out. Also want to retorque your tires just in case these aren't seated. If these aren't seated, they'll rattle loose and then your tire will fall off, so don't do that. Even grab a steel rim and torque the tires. And then, yeah, a couple times because you want these 100% to seat. Would you just look at that? Oh, so nice. The Bronco will finally be able to stop. It says right on it, left, so that'll be going on the left of the vehicle. We take our hub, pop that on. Should fit. Should fit. The other one fit. Nice tight fit. You know, that's my paint. Look at her. I'm gonna start these and then press them back in. But just a hammer works too. Just when we do press them, we just want to have a tube over top. Should be good. So before we put your brake on, you gotta put the bracket for the caliper on. It goes on there like that. I did have to modify the housing just a hair. You can see how much I took off just to make that fit. There's lots of meat there. That's just so this one clear. So we'll splash some paint on that and then bolt that on. Bam, done. I did shave the top of those bolts off, just the letters basically. They were 10.9, but they're pretty close to the rotor. I just wanted to give it a little bit of extra space. I'm gonna throw those beautiful, beautiful calipers on. Oh, look at that. Wash my hands, pop those on, here we go. Okay, so we got both of these hubs mounted. Again, no axle. We will do that separate. Thought about it. This thing is being ignorant. It's rusty and gross. No good. So we're gonna carry on. And we've got our steering now to figure out. So we're gonna be able to set tow without having this on the vehicle, because the geometry doesn't change because it's a solid axle. So this is close. I got to make sure that you've got threads sticking out past, that you never seize everything. We're just gonna put a tack on both ends. Then we're gonna put our tires on, drop it on the ground. I guess we don't even need to drop it on the ground. We'll just put our tires on, and then we can measure end to end on the rims and make sure we got like a 1/4 inch or an 1/8 of an inch, about an 1/8 of an inch toe in. We do a nice little short trip with it to the cottage, and then we can get it in for an alignment once things have all settled and moved and found its place. And then on our long trip to Bowling Green, Kentucky for 25 hours of driving, it'll be perfect. There we go. Well, the rims should fit because we tried them out with our little cardboard template around those beautiful, beautiful brakes. And they do. Life is good. Fantastic. 56.5. 57.5. 57. 57 and an 8. Lock it in there just for the time being. All right, now we've got our axle here. We've got our radius arms that keep the axle from rolling one way or another. We have our springs, our progressive rate spring, so it's more comfortable in the initial shocks, and then as you load it, it becomes tighter. Whereas the old shocks are just big, solid, heavy shocks. So this should ride a little bit more comfortable. We've got our drag link that connects the two tires together. Now we need to keep the axle from going side to side, and that is our drag link here. Now there's lots of videos about your drag link and your track bar or Panhard bar being parallel as they go. That's not what needs to be parallel. It's the swing as it goes down and comes back up. This arch has to match this arch. That's what keeps you from having bump steer. Bump steer is when your tire or your spring compresses, your suspension compresses, and because your arch isn't equal between, or your arch isn't parallel between your drag link and your Panhard bar, the tire steers on its own because it has no choice. So what we're gonna do is just try and, there's really not a whole lot we can do with our drag link. It connects to our steering and it is what it is. That's our bar right there. But we can play with the geometry with the Panhard bar a little bit. So we're gonna put it in place. We're gonna see where our diff ends up. We're gonna mount the back brackets and get our forward and back right. And then we'll compress the suspension and we'll see where we end up. That's pretty straightforward. We're ready to take it off the thing. I meant to paint that flat black and ended up grabbing a gloss black paint can. So I'll probably hit that with flat black. And then I haven't welded the tabs on here yet or painted the perches yet because this gets bolted to the upper perch. And I just want it spinning right before, sitting right before I splash some paint on that. So we are going to remove the suspension in that. Yours is different than mine. If yours is stock, all of these brackets are riveted, but we've already done all that. So all of my suspension is bolted in place. So we can drop this down pretty easily. I won't record that because our video is getting pretty long. But once we get this out of here, we can roll that beauty goodness underneath here. There we go. So we've had some good times, the suspension and me, but you know what? Bye-bye. That was the easiest 20 minutes I've ever done. All those bolts came out like nothing. Got a couple more brackets here, we'll take those out. It is important if you are gonna drop that on a hoist to make sure that it doesn't fall off the hoist because you're removing a few 100 pounds from the front. So if you're not balanced properly, you can lose it off the hoist. So I did it off the ground and undid everything and then just lifted the truck off, checked the balance and stuff. But yeah, here we go. That would have been constructed, but okay, so I've got the back radius arms just vice grip to the frame where my tire measurements are the same. Got my tape measure hanging there. So the axle is forward and back in the proper spot. Then just to get it close, I had to put a a ratchet strap on it just to center the axle roughly up above or below the frame. I would get that super close, but that allowed me to put my drag link and my tie rod ends in so they are snug but not tight. That way I'm centered and these bars are all good. Now we can do our Panhard bar or a track bar. Now I got this bar from All for Fun Off-Road and it's got 2 bends in it. That's meant for first gen and he sent it to me to see if I could make it work. It doesn't work at all. What works best is the bar that came with it with this little bend here. Basically now that my steering is in place, I can pop this on and then I did get the bushings for that, so new bushings. But I'm gonna cut the pipe off and weld a thicker pipe on there. Now it's just basically putting it in place somewhere where the angle is right and it doesn't hit. Bob did mention that I'll probably have to notch this, and I probably will. I'm not too worried. I can move the power steering line up and just cut that away because we're gonna make a completely new bracket for the Coyote swap, so I'm not too worried about that. I just gotta make sure that doesn't hit my steering as it turns around, and it doesn't hit anything as my suspension compresses. I'll probably start by welding the ends on the bracket. I gotta figure a way to make this side adjustable so I can move it back and forth if I have to. And basically I'm just gonna put it in place. I'll roughly measure how far. Like I can't change this end because that's stuck on the axle. So I can change this end and I can make the bracket. It'll probably end up sitting right about here and come down just a hair, roughly the same angle, but as long as the radius ends up the same, it'll be golden. So here we go. Alright, so for the Panhard bar, I took a leftover chunk of the 1-inch steel that I got from Bronco Bob and welded a nut on the end. And then took a bolt like this that was fine thread and shaved the end off and welded the pipe to the end of that bolt. Then grabbed a lock nut, put that in there, and then shoved that in, welded that. And then figured out my length and then grinded that off so I can just shove that on top. I'll weld that in there, and then I've got adjustment of, with the lock nut, probably about 2 inches. So that should be enough to be able to fine tune it if I get it super close. So we'll weld that solid and then we can install that and basically put the bracket where it's happy. and then drill the holes, and then I can fine tune and adjust it afterwards. Here we go. I'm not sure how normal people do this, but I hung my nuts off of a string on the shock tower in the same spot on both sides. And I measured from the string over, and here I've got 2 and an 8 to the hole, and here I've got 2. I already measured, I'm measuring for the camera, but I am about 2 inches, so about a 1/16 of an inch off, and I'm not going to adjust that because one click of the ratchet strap, I'm just going to go the other way. So that is where my axle is going to stay in relation to my frame. So we can mount the bracket to hold that right where it is. That's a good height, meaning you can, the Panhard bar hides nicely right behind the drag link. So I am very happy with that. We should have 0 bump steer with that. So I'll clean that off. I think this is a weld-on bracket. I tried playing with the other lift brackets to see what would work best. It's a bad spot to drill here because it's a box frame, so I can't get nuts on the back. So I'll probably just end up welding it to the frame there for now. So I'll clean that up, tack it in place, and then we're basically gonna drop the suspension down and clean and paint and tighten and weld everything, and then we're all set. Here we go. Okay, so I measured again from the edge of my plate to the face on my spring shackle bracket. Can't be much better than measuring the front axle off of the back axle. Keep in mind that we can shim those up a little bit. So we're gonna drill a hole in the bottom as a reference point, and then we're gonna lift the truck off and leave everything down below, and then paint and finish everything up. And then we're laughing. There and there and there, and Aaron's supposed to tell me when things light on fire, but I think it's funnier when it's
I didn't see that one.
there's 2 fires already. Just small ones, but look at the smoke coming out of the hood. I got Aaron just staring through his lens.
Well, I can't look. I have to block what you're doing with my camera.
I know. I can't see it. I have to smell it. So right away I'm like, that's bad smell. Something's up.
Yeah.
That's a hard weld. We'll clean that right up when we build our nice new cradle for the coyotes. This just has to last
Until winter.
until winter. So these, I think these are originally meant for first gen Bronco. And my shocks come on a big angle and they're a bit too low. So we're gonna take the brackets from the other one and weld them on top and just bring it forward because I can't get shocks in time. And then we can nip them back off again afterwards, or we'll see what's up. Maybe we can do a double shock tower, but basically this is gonna sit right like this. Close that in afterwards or whatever, but for now this will work. when the paint boils, because it's still red hot, it's dry in like 3 seconds. A little bit of fisheye. I promised myself I wouldn't get too carried away with this build, because then I'm nervous about driving it all the time. I don't want that. I just want to drive it and enjoy it. If it's too nice, then I can't drive it anymore. Straight, put the hanger on the top. There. Oh, that's not bad. I gotta do that one by hand like a Mennonite. It's very frustrating. Drag links on, and tie rod ends, and we'll measure again. Or maybe I'll measure now. Somebody told me I should ask Bob to help. I'm like, I don't know Bob. And they're like, plumb Bob. I don't care if he's fat or not. I don't know Bob, so I'll just use these nuts. These about 2 1/8. Can't get much better than that. According to the spring perch and those, which center themselves. So, I guess the alignment machine will tell us better.
You got an appointment booked?
No. Every time I book an appointment, I miss it. I'm like, I'm not ready. And you gotta book the guy like 3 weeks in advance.
Oh, shoot.
He's like, because he's good. so we'll drive it. We'll get the kicks out of it. And we'll do an alignment before we go to Ford Fest. I'm okay with that. I'll throw the nut on the back of that. I can lock everything down. Yeah, I'll throw the steering on it quick, and then I'm going to go over every joint
and tighten everything, put cotter pins in. Paint is, oh, it is dry. And it wasn't even on fire. Because the sway bar needs to move forward, but my drop down brackets from Skyjacker are on an angle, so I think if I flip the brackets around and push the sway bar forward, it'll line up with these links pretty nice actually. So that's exciting. Snug these up, fire it up, see if it turns all the way without hitting stuff. It's weird, this battery usually doesn't go bad. This is a Walmart special. Go to the right. Okay. Go to the left. Okay, jiggle back and forth. Okay. So all that play is gone. Yeah. That feels much better. Well, from not moving, like what can you tell? But at least we have a new steering column too, which will probably take up this little bit because this is just play in the linkage. Tighten that fan belt a little bit too. Oh yeah, oh just water. Is it? Yeah. Any water that comes out of exhaust is, or anything that comes out of exhaust is water. It means that sniper is running a perfect air fuel mixture, and the only thing left is H2O. So it looks good, other than the bushings on the Panhard bar. They're moving just slightly, like just slightly. So I think when we do it again this winter, we'll grab some proper steel Heim joints and follow the contour. I think the contour is really good. So it's looking solid enough. We'll take it down the road and then go from there. Nice, and the sway bar will help too. So, because yeah, without the sway bar, she's still kind of bouncy. Nice. That's it for today. I'm gonna tighten everything up tomorrow. We're gonna replace the master with a BAER Brake master as well, just so we've got good lines everywhere, and I'm gonna have to redo the lines for the front. So a little bit of brake work tomorrow, but as soon as that's done, we're ready for the road. I gotta put dust caps on the inside because we don't have our axle in there. If we get caught in the rain and stuff, it kind of go in there, so we'll just put a dust cap on the inside. We're golden. Go grab the quad. It's Tuesday, we don't leave till Friday, so that's not bad. We still got like 3 days. Other than a root canal and a bunch of other stuff I gotta get done. We're good. All right, see you in the morning. Okay, so now that we got the front brakes on, we are going to replace that master. Even though I think it's new, I didn't paint it. I think Trey put it on when we bought it off of him. But we are installing this BAER master because it's got a proportioning valve built in, or that you bolt onto the bottom of that. That's because our brake bias is going to be off. We got 6 piston calipers on the front now. It used to be a 1 piston. So we're going to be able to stop now, but I can't put the 9-inch on the back yet. I've got a beautiful Gear FX rear end for this, but it is a 411 gear ratio, and I can't use that with no overdrive and drive for 30 hours. So we're gonna keep that. I think it's a 373 in the back. And we'll do our cruising around, and then when we're back and we've got the 6R80 in there, we can put the 411 and the gear ratio in the back. So that master will allow us to make sure we've got the right amount of braking front to back. So universal kit should just bolt on. You got to measure your push rod on your pedal to make sure that it hits the valve properly, and then it's basically just bolted on. New flex lines, and I gotta run a hard wire. The hard line to the back is fine. I'll just put a union in there and join that up. So pretty straightforward. Ignore the engine bay and the loose wires laying around and the unhooked AC and the oil splattered all over my firewall and plugs not being there, stuff. That's all temporary. I don't really care about this engine, although I gotta be honest, this thing has been fantastic. So the story on that was that when Trey got it, it was seized. He knocked the piston loose, honed the cylinder, threw a new set of rings in there, and made a point to tell me he used new head gaskets, and we've put about 7,000 miles on it so far. So a little bit longer, we'll get into that this winter because I love driving it so much. I don't want it down for the summer. So we got other stuff to finish up first anyway. So, all right, here we go. Okay, there we've got our beautiful master. They come with these little copper inserts, so you gotta make sure you put those in. So because of that, I didn't want to put the copper lines in those lines, so I've made these lines, and they're all pre-made, ready to go. So we'll tighten them up. We'll bleed the master on the bench here, and then pop it on, and then bleed the front and the rear brakes, and we're good. Getting close. I want to drive this thing. I'm gonna pick up the quad in like 2 hours. Here we go. Alright, got the master on, new brake lines are on, new flex lines, tightened everything, cotter pins and everything, greased everything. We got never seized, we double checked our toe, ball joints are tight, back brackets are drilled and tight, and the brakes are bled. Asked Kevin if he still had my vacuum bleeder, and then he just happened to be driving by and he wanted to explain that he brought it back, but he's got him to pump the brakes. And that worked really well. So, gonna oil it, we're gonna drop it down and back it out and double check the brakes work and go down the road. Exciting stuff, here we go. I gotta grab supper first though. I got the girls, I can't go too far because I'm on dad duty now. So I missed the chance to grab the quad, even though it's only been like an hour. I didn't realize that I'm on dad duty tonight. So I'll have to grab the quad in the morning. Here we go. Ford life. I guess it's getting another battery. Nice! I got it rattling and my door handle broke. Okay, so last night I had the kids and I couldn't take it because there was still air in the brakes. So I bled them by myself. I swear Kevin has my vacuum bleeder somewhere. He can't find it in his shop. My shop's not much cleaner. His is worse. But what I did was I just stuck a vacuum line on the bleeder, and then I just stick it in a full can of brake fluid, and then just pump my pedal slowly so it pumps the air in, and then it sucks fluid back up. Did that, 16 pump pedals for each corner. I got good brakes now. Had a bunch of appointments this morning at a root canal and stuff, so we're gonna go drive it, and hopefully it's better because basically I leave in the morning, so I still gotta do a couple small things, but if she goes in a straight line, then I'll tell my wife that I tested it properly and we're good for a long road trip, and we'll probably make it. Here we go. Okay, we're gonna wait for all the traffic to go by, just because I don't want to get, if there's an issue, torque the tires, so we're good there. It's 20 miles an hour. No shaking, it's responsive. 50, that's our speed limit. No vibration, no death wobble. A little faster, we'll go highway speed. I don't have to white knuckle it anymore. This is amazing. Steering wheel's crooked just a little bit. So if I shorten my drag length, then that should take care of that. Nice. Oh, this is so much better. Find a bumpy road. I don't hear anything. No ticking, knocking, rattling. Oh, this is so much better. See, it's a turning radius. There's no axles in there yet, so I don't know if that shouldn't inhibit anything. Brakes work phenomenal. I did try that out. Sharp turn. It's kind of rolly, so like a lot of body roll, but it's to be expected, I guess, with a big lift. I think we're going to change the shocks on it yet. I think they're just not, if we could get one that's at least adjustable, because it rides really nice, but the roll is pretty excessive, I would say. Oh, they paved over my big bumpy road. That's why I passed by this one. I'm like, oh, that was just paved. I thought they must have paved this one and the other one. So I can't really try out the suspension here so much.
I'll have to take it to Ford Fest. Your off-road course.
I'm not taking it off-road. We're done jumping it. The twin I-beam is perfect for jumping.
I mean, they're rock crawling course. Take it rock crawling.
This is our ride home. As much as I want to prove our vehicles at Ford Fest, I think driving them the 1,000 miles to Ford Fest is it's not quite 1,000. It's 11 hours driving, 12. So this is the shakedown run. We're gonna leave tomorrow morning to go quadding, pulling a trailer. I gotta go grab the quad yet, and then the shakedown run for the F350. We'll be driving it to Ford Fest. It's always a good idea. I am happy with that. We'll throw it back on the hoist, check everything, double check everything, retighten everything after we do the quad and get a little bit of running around in there. And I think I'm already super happy that we did this. Do a little bit of off-roading there. We could drive through Kevin's cornfield.
Canfield.
Okay, so in its stock, tight bushing form, the twin I-beam, I've heard lots of positive things about it. When we first drove this thing from Oregon, it tried to kill me. It was super scary. When we brought it to All for Fun Off-Road, we put the lift kit in there and replaced all the bushings and tie rod ends, and it was still scary to drive. We tried the stabilizer kit, and it was still chewing tires. So if you put a lift kit in there, I highly recommend a solid axle swap as well. One other thing that the solid axle swap did for us was get our stance perfect, because before it was up too high in the front. It looked awkward. We had the Carolina stance on there, and I didn't like it. And that's probably just because the rear leafs were sagging, because it had a 4-inch lift in it as well. But we put a lower kit in the front, just an inch, and then we're going to put new leaf springs in the back that don't need the big 4-inch block on there when we do the 9-inch. So it should be easier for the family to climb in and out of, and now the stance is much more betterer. So from here, we're going to do a separate video installing the Eaton locker in the front and rebuilding the 9-inch in the back. We'll put the BAER brakes on the back after we do our road trip so that we got the proper gearing. I'm super excited for the Coyote that's going in there, but for now I'm just taking it up north for the weekend and then back continuing on the F350. Got a lot more done on it, got about half a video done, and you will see both of them hopefully at Ford Fest at the end of September in Bowling Green, Kentucky. So regardless, juice box will go unless something catastrophic goes wrong this weekend, but it will be there regardless, and we're in good shape for the F350. Unless there's something major wrong, we should have that there too. So thanks for watching, guys. Definitely comment down below if I missed something or if I forgot something or I explained something wrong. It does happen. This is my first swap, but just driving it to me proves that so far I did everything correctly. But definitely let me know in case something else pops up. Appreciate you guys' input, and as always, if you're not filthy, you're not rich, so get out there and work on it so you can put a big smile on your face when you drive. Here we go.